Well, good evening. I'm Bruce Hawley, president of the Circus Historical Society, and welcome to Circus History Live. Circus History Live is produced monthly by the CHS. Recordings of previous programs are available on the Circus Historical Society YouTube channel. Tonight's program is a tribute to Bill Taggart, who passed away on December 24th, 2024, at the age of 94. Bill worked on Ringling in the 1950s at the end of the Under Canvas days. Over the years, Bill shared amazing stories of his career in several articles in our Bandwagon Journal. In preparation for another Bandwagon Journal article, CHS Vice President Chris Berry interviewed Bill a couple of weeks before he passed. Tonight, Chris is going to reminisce about Bill and provide a recording of an interview that he did with Bill a couple of years ago. So without further ado, Chris, go ahead.
Thanks so much, Bruce. Many of the people who have been involved with the CHS or people who have been friends to what we've done here, they have known Bill Taggart, again, as Bruce said, from his articles in Bandwagon, but also he's attended some of our events, including he was at the World Circus Congress a few years ago in Springfield, Massachusetts. He was a regular show folks in Sarasota, and he has some terrific stories. But before we get into it, I want to tell you a couple of things about Bill, and also just kind of show you a little bit. This is Bill in the yellow ticket wagon, which of course was where he would spend a lot of his times on the Ringling Circus back in the 1950s. He also is, and I'm having just a little bit of a issue here, Bruce. So I'm hoping.
Yeah, it's not popped on yet. If you can go ahead and share your screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, folks, it's all part of the act. This is the part we didn't rehearse.
Here it comes.
So there's our buddy Bill. Bill was he passed away on Christmas Eve of this past year, and as Bruce said, I used to speak with him regularly. We used to talk pretty much every Sunday afternoon for an hour or so. So I heard a lot of his stories over the years, and we do have some of them coming up in an upcoming issue or two of Bandwagon. But I thought that today would be a great opportunity just to kind of reminisce with Bill. This is the first time we've ever done anything like this, which is kind of a posthumous broadcast, because you're going to hear Bill in his own words here. So he's going to talk about a few things, including the yellow ticket wagon. That yellow ticket wagon, this picture was taken, I believe, in 1953. That's where Bill worked in the 1950s selling tickets. So you'll hear him refer to the yellow ticket wagon, which was his home. He also will talk about Doc Henderson. This is J.Y. Henderson, who was the veterinarian on the Ringling Circus for about 40 years. And he's the guy who hired Bill after he saw the circus in Washington, D.C., when Bill was at American University. This is Edna Antes. Some of us know Edna from her days on the Clyde Beatty Cole Brothers Circus. She was behind the ticket wagon selling tickets for many years. Bill always thought that she was his best friend when he was on the Ringling Show, and they did a lot of things together. You'll hear stories about Edna Antes. Rudy Bundy. Rudy Bundy was a very good friend of John Ringling North's. He was on the front door, and he was Bill's boss when he first arrived on the Ringling Circus, and he'll tell some stories about Rudy Bundy. This is Michael Burke. Michael Burke was the general manager of the Ringling Circus in 1955 and 56, which were the days when things were getting really bad for the show under canvas. Bill has some stories about Michael Burke and kind of some of the things that happened there, especially as the unions came into play and really shut down the show in 1956. He had experiences with Art Consello, who was the general manager of the show in the early 1950s, and he talks about him up until 1953 when he was terminated. This next fellow is, and I know this is kind of hard without a scorecard, but I just wanted to show you some of these people that he's going to be talking about. This is a fellow that is known as Lawson. His name is Willis Lawson. He was an assistant manager on the circus, and he was very supportive of Bill during those days, and then went on. He really was with the Ringling Circus into the Feld era, started in the 1940s. This is a picture. Bill is second from the top. That's Edna Antes on the top of the stairs, and Bill and the ticket sellers from the Clyde Beatty Cole Brothers Circus of 1959, when Bill had gone back there, and he talks a little bit about those days. And even more recently, this is Jennifer Walker and Bill on John Pugh's Cole Brothers Circus, which we saw, of course, at the throughout the 2000s. And Bill, even though he had was much past the year of retirement for most people, he continued to obviously be a part of the circus world during that time. So this next part of the presentation actually is going to be Bill in his own words. This video was made in 2019, May the 1st, 2019. Bill was 88 years old when it was made, and I got to tell you, if I am as sharp as he is when I'm 88, I will have a lot to be thankful for. So for the next 30 minutes or so, Bill is going to be talking. I urge you to turn up the volume on your computer, because there is some background noise. This was at Show Folks, and there were some people at the bar who were a little loud, but I have added closed captioning, and even with the advantages that artificial intelligence gives us, some of the words, as you'll see, are not quite accurate. But without any further ado, I am going to share the screen here, and we're going to have Bill Taggart in his own words.
So my friend and I, we talk quite, this is the Bill and Chris show. So we talk sometimes at night. I live in Arizona. He lives in Sarasota or in Gibsonton. So it's the time zone thing works against us. And what do you say at night when it's time to go to bed? I gotta go to bed. He tells me those red wagons are gonna start rolling pretty soon. Red wagons are gonna roll. The dog is tired. So anyway, Bill, what I want to start off here, we're going to talk about 1956, such a historic year for the Ringling Circus. But first, I want you to tell us about how you got onto the circus. You mean at 53? Yes, sir. Okay, I was going to school at American University in Washington, D.C., and the Ringling show opened under canvas. And I went to the matinee, and I went back and I saw Doc Henderson, and I said, Doc, I can ride a horse as good as anybody, and I can take care of a horse. I'd like a summer job. He said, okay. The pay is about $12 a week. So I had to go and take an exam from a professor of mine. I told him, I got to join the circus. I have to take the exam early. So he let me. And then I took the bus to Jersey City, New Jersey, and joined the Ringling show. Worked on ringside. $14 a week and all the horses you could feed. So you get onto the train, and you're sleeping on that train with a bunch of people who you didn't know. Yeah. So were they friendly to you? Yeah, I had my own bunk. Thank you. I didn't double up. I had my own bunk. And we had a good boss. His name, there was Frank Selak, was the head horseman, and there was old man Miller, and he'd come along at night and pinch in the leg and say, in town, and you'd get up, and you'd go and take the bus to the cookhouse and have your meal, then you'd come back and get the horses, and you'd ride one horse and lead two to the lot. So you lead two to the lot, you bring them out there, you do the show. Did you get to watch the show at that time? No, I didn't want to see the show. I had to ride in the show. I had to ride in spec and one or two other things. But so one night you were telling me about how, and this was pretty early on in the show, you woke up one morning to a surprise. What? The shoes? That's a surprise to me. I thought you told me a story about waking up one morning and your boots were missing or something. Don't believe everything I tell you. All right, that means they shouldn't believe anything you're telling me. I want to tell you one thing. On those movies, excuse me, in those movies there was a wonderful horse. His name was, Harold. He was bought by Paul Eagles for the LG Barn Circus. And anytime you saw the Ringling elephants, you saw Harold. He died in Sarasota. Okay, so we're not going to talk about the horse anymore, but what we are going to talk about is as the show progresses, you move from ring stock to the ticket wagon. Well, it took a little while. In '53, I worked in ring stock, and then I left to go back to college. When I was in college, I went to New York and saw Lawson and got a summer job on the Ringling show. And I met him in Bridgeport, Connecticut. I graduated college in Ohio, and the next day I was on the Ringling show in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
So you're on the Ringling show, and now they've moved you from ring stock to you're selling tickets.
No, I worked on the front door for Rudy Bundy, who was a hell of a boss, a nice guy.
So you get along with them okay?
Yeah, I got along with him most of the time. You don't get along with your boss all the time anyway. Do you?
This is like the edited version, folks. So,
He
all right.
was a good man. He was John Ringling North's close friend, very close.
So when you were on that show, this is when Art Kinsella was running the show, right?
That was in '53. Kinsella was there in '53. North got rid of him in the end of '53, and the show started to go down, 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 down.
Yeah, we saw that picture of Michael Burke up there, and for some reason it just stayed up there for too long. I don't know.
Yeah. He was not a circus man. He was not a baseball man.
Didn't do very good with the Yankees either.
No.
So anyway, so now you start selling tickets.
No, let me think. Now wait. I went to New York in '56.
We're not in '56.
Oh, we're not.
No, I want you to tell us about selling tickets, and this was in a time when you maybe had to make a few extra bucks than what they were paying you.
I got high back chair seats at the 2-hour circus. Tell the man how many. And I always sold them. And the ticket seller came to me one night after I first sold tickets, and he said, "Bill, you got to pay the boss. You got to make some extra money." So I learned right away I had to make a little extra money. So I sold a 75-cent ticket for $2.75 because they wanted 2 tickets. If they wanted 3 tickets, it was $3.75. You know, that's the way it goes. Suckers are suckers. Come on.
So you're on the show, and there's a woman on the show who some of the people in this room had dealings with over the years, Edna Ante. She was almost like a sister or a mother to you, right?
Well, she was my best friend. Yeah. She and her husband joined Kinsella on the show on the West Coast.
Russell Brothers.
And then she went over the Ringling show when Kinsella was there, and then she followed McCluskey, and she was on Clyde Beatty Brothers. Everywhere she went, and I was there to work.
So now we're going to move on to 1955.
Yeah.
And the show now is under the control of Michael Burke. Kinsella's gone, but some of his guys are still running the show.
Yeah.
And these are some people they're taking more than just 75 cents from the show at that point, right?
Yeah, sure. Listen, on a show you had to make money. The Ringling didn't pay money. You had to make money. A big show like the Ringling show, you had to grease the wheel. You had to pay somebody. If you went at the cookhouse, you tipped the waiter. If you went and got your uniform, you tipped the uniform person. If you had your ticket box moved, you paid him. You paid to ride the bus. You know.
So if you keep tipping people, pretty soon you're going to be out of money unless you're making money on your own.
You got to make money on your own. Yes, that's right. Don't tell me the Ringling show used all those. I wish I could talk to James Ringling. Unfortunately, we can't. But he moved that show for years, and they know how to do it. And it was greasing the wheel.
So the show gets, we're in 55 now, right?
All right.
And so the show gets into, I think it's in Chicago, and maybe they decide that some of those guys like Frank McCluskey who are running the show, maybe they're taking a little too much money.
John Ringling North got a bug, and he didn't want the G-top behind in the backyard.
The gambling that was going on in the backyard during the
They
show.
sold beer and they sold the head gambling during the show for the working men. Keep them on the lot. Keep them on the lot because you need people on the lot if anything goes wrong. So Johnny North didn't want that. So he called McCluskey and Lawson. They went into Chicago and they fired them. And the next day we're in St. Paul. That night in St. Paul, the word got out that they were fired. Well, I was in the ticket wagon.
So these are the guys who are running the show: general manager, assistant general manager, and you're in the ticket wagon.
I was in the ticket wagon selling tickets, and all of a sudden the music changed, and I knew something was wrong, and people came running out. So Edna came over and said, "Bill, you got to stay in the wagon and refund money." All the prop hands went on strike.
This is in the middle of the show.
In the middle of the show, they quit, went on strike. So I had to stay and refund tickets. And then that night we went to the train, and Jimmy and Ringling and Aunties and I, some of us were there, and we talked to them how bad it was, so on and so on.
What's happening down on the lot at this point?
Oh, on the lot, nobody was tearing the thing down. So the one man that was very good on the circus was a member of this club. Phil Forster. No.
Doyle's
Burkhart. He got everybody together. He went to the train, got all the horse people around and everything. He walked in the big top, and he said, "Fellas, we're going to move this show. It's our show, and we're going to move it." And everybody did it. We moved the show and got it loaded and got it out of town. The next day, I'm in the ticket wagon in St. Paul, and up the midway comes Lawson. Lawson came up to me and said, "Bill, stay on the show. I'll have a place for you next year if you want to go, but stay on the show this year." So I stayed on the show. Went to California. Yeah.
So all right. So it's the next. Now it's going to be the next year, 1956. They decide they've got new plans for you in '56.
Yeah. I got a call, I think, from Rudy Bundy. "Bill, we'd like you to go to New York and stay at the Belvedere Hotel, but go over to Paul Eagles." I had never met Paul Eagles and worked for Paul Eagles. He was a contracting agent.
Now this is before the show. They were still in rehearsals in Sarasota.
Yeah. I went to New York and worked for Paul Eagles, a lovely man. He was on the LG Barnes show. He was at the Paul Eagles Luncheon Club in California. He was a great contracting agent, lovely guy. And I worked for him all winter. And Frank Braden, the press agent, stayed at the Paramount Hotel too. And we'd ask Fred, "Where do you want to go to eat for supper tonight?" And the answer was always Gil Hooley's, a steak joint over on 8th Avenue. So we ate every night at Gil Hooley's. Well, then it was getting ready for the show to open. And we knew that they were going to put dirt in the garden for the show. So Paul Eagles and I and somebody else, we went over to the garden, and the dirt didn't arrive, and it didn't arrive. And come to find out, the Teamsters didn't get the payoff. Now, Kinsella always knew how to pay. In New York, you got to pay if you want something done. And Kinsella knew that, but Michael Burke didn't, so he didn't want to give any money, and Johnny North didn't want to give any money, so we didn't get dirt for the garden. So then the Teamsters threw a picket line around the garden, and the HEVAs started to picket and everything, and we had trouble.
So let's just stop there for a second. Yeah. So the AGVA, American Guild of Variety Artists, was representing the Ringling talent at that point. Teamsters are representing the truck drivers and things like that. So you've now got a picket line, and some of the members of the cast aren't going to cross that line. Remember that?
Yes, some of the members didn't, but we got injunctions. We got papers. Burkhart got papers, and we gave the picket people injunctions to get the hell away from the garden. And we got the general foods people into the garden, and we put on the television show.
So again, this is just sort of a sign of things to come, because the Teamsters, and it was Jimmy Hoffa who was running the union at that point, he decides that he's going to pretty much declare war on the Ringling Circus.
Yes, he did. They were, back in the 30s, the Teamsters tried to get a hold of the Ringling show, and they had a strike. In 1938, they had a strike in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Scranton, Pennsylvania. Yeah, right. Is that Elliot over there correcting us? Oh, okay. All right, go ahead.
Okay. So we talked about some of the people who didn't cross the picket line, and there were some. Emmett Kelly did not cross the picket line,
no.
And so you have the show at the Garden, and then you move up to Boston, and Agva decides they're going to go toe to toe against Ringling Circus.
And the Aunties and Rudy Bundy and I took the train before the show closed at the garden, we went up to Boston, got the Boston Garden ready, and they put on a good free show against it. But we did business at the garden.
The Union did a free show against the Ringling Circus. But you look at those films that Kenny showed us tonight. There were a lot of people in some of the stands there too.
Yeah, sure, we did business.
But there are still problems going on with the show.
Right.
And as the train is moving along, and now you're going out under canvas, the Teamsters continue to cause problems.
Yeah, and before Geneva, New York, they stole the truck off the Ringling show somewhere, and a friend of mine saw it driving up the New York State Thruway. I don't know who had it, but they stole the truck, and then they put stuff on the canvas wagons. You know, they were real pain in
Put
the ass.
acid on the canvas.
Right, they're real buggers.
And they were cutting hoses on they were cutting ear hoses on the train and things like that. They were really causing problems, picketing at locations and things like that. So then you get up into upstate New York and that storm happened. Tell me what you were doing that night. I understand your mother had come to visit you because you were from upstate.
Yeah, Alfred Burton came and stayed at my house the night before we went to Geneva. My mother and I and Alfred went over to Geneva. My mother sat in the ticket distribution wagon with the aunties, and I was in the wagon. I call it the yellow wagon, but that time it was printed blue and white, but I still call it the yellow wagon. Ticket wagon.
Yeah, yellow ticket wagon is the Baraboo now.
Yeah, that's right. So I
was yellow.
And I kind of missed the storm. I saw some people coming out, but I couldn't do anything about it.
You didn't have to refund any money that night?
No. I refunded money, yes.
So, let's talk a little bit about the money. You were handling a lot of money in that ticket wagon, right?
Yeah.
And so in the movie The Greatest Show on Earth, which everybody has seen here, they put that money into one of the wagons and they tried to rob it. Could anything like that have ever really happened?
I doubt it very much. When I was on the show, there were two great men. Theo Forstall was the treasurer, and Bobby Gluck from Peru, Indiana, was the assistant treasurer. And they took the money in the bag and took it to the train, and they put it in a safe under the bunk where my room was on the train.
You're telling me that the day's tapes was carried underneath your bunk?
Yes, it was. That's true. I forgot the name of the railroad car. I think it was 369, but I don't know.
So you had $15,000, $20,000 under your mattress at night?
Yeah, they'd go to the bank in the morning.
I said at night. Sleeping well.
Right.
So Geneva happens. There's a blowdown. We saw it. And so then what happens? How are you able to do the show without a big top?
The next day we went to Elmira, and the big top boss was George Warner. He stretched out all the cables, all the wires and everything, and rigged the show and put up the poles. And we put the show on, an open air show. We did it in Elmira, Olean, Dunkirk, New York. You saw the movies. And the old big top was sent up to Niagara Falls. We got a big top in Niagara Falls.
But it was the 55 big top.
The 55 full of homes.
So now you've got the old new big top. You're out there. It's now getting into June. It's getting into July. What's happening on the show? These Teamsters still giving you problems?
Once in a while, the railroad guys were fooling around, siding with the Teamsters too. Trains would be late, we'd get derailed or something, things like that happen. It was not easy on that show.
So everybody, they looked pretty happy in those films, but what was morale like on the show there in '56?
I didn't have any idea where we were going to close. I had no idea till we got to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on July 16th. Ed the aunties and I got off the train. We went to a little place and had a nice breakfast. We took the bus to the lot, and we went over by the Silver Wagon, which
wasn't painted silver.
No, but it was still the Silver Wagon. We went over there, and Rudy Bundy was as white as a ghost. He had a little piece of paper in his hand, and he said to Ed and I, "Read this, folks, but don't tell anybody. The show is closing tonight." So that was it. We knew the show was closing. And Doyle's Burkhart came to me and he said, "Bill, get up in the way out of town. Be sure to see that horseshoe turn in Pennsylvania.
So what Bill's saying is that when the show closed that night, I imagine that everybody was pretty. I mean, you were surprised. Everybody must have been
Yeah,
surprised.
I sold an old man the last ticket for $20. I had to get the getaway money, you know.
So you're looking at the man that sold the last ticket for the last Ringling Circus under campus, right?
Right here.
So you got $20 for it.
We took the train the long ride to Sarasota.
All right. So you've been with the circus now off and on for about 3 or 4 years, and you now become a circus man. I mean, you got your degree and everything, but what are you going to do?
Well, I went home. I got some railroad passes, and I took the train to New York. I went home for a few days, and I called up Lawson. He was on the Christianity show. Mateo's here tonight, and I went and met the Christianity show in Delaware. I went to see that. And I worked with Lawson, and I did candied apples and snow cones, and ate it every day of it.
So you're telling me you went from the greatest show on earth to what was now the largest, probably arguably the largest under-campus show, Christianity.
It was a very good show.
But the circus wasn't over for the season. They closed still.
Yeah, then they closed. They came to Sarasota and closed, and I got a ride up
The Beatty show.
Yeah, I got a ride up north with a agent, Jakey Rosenheim. I got it to Atlanta, and I saw Edna Antes. She was with Frank McCluskey, and I stopped to say hello to them, and they said, "Come on, go to work for us."
So you're telling me that in 1956 you were with 3 different circuses?
Yes, 3 different circuses. I closed with Clyde Beatty Cole Brothers.
Clyde Beatty Circus at that point,
Right.
the railroad show. And so you're with Ringling, you closed that, then you closed Christianity, and closed the Beatty show. I don't know if any other show would want to have you on it.
Didn't want to go on another show, my friend. Show this.
So, but you couldn't stay away.
No, I couldn't stay away.
So as we wrap this up, we talked about Edna Antes. You went back and worked with her again.
Yeah, in summer when I went to teaching high school, and one day I got called to the office. It was Edna Antes. She said, "Bill, you want to work in the wagon for the summer on the show?" And I said, "Sure." So I went and worked on in the wagon with Edna and Theo Forrestal, and Fred Fenning's father published a road book, and there's a picture of Edna and I standing on the ticket wagon.
You kind of got the band back together.
Right.
But that wasn't the end of it, because in the 60s they called you back one more time.
I went back several times on that. Yeah, I like to be on the road in the summer. Who the hell wants to hang around in a small town all summer?
So I want you to put your hands together for our friend, because I think those red wagons are going to start. Questions that they'd like to ask Bill. Yes, Mr. Fenning.
Bill, in 56,
In 56,
do you think it was the problems with the Teamsters and the late arrivals and the missing the matinees and stuff that caused the show more than bad business?
was it the Teamsters and the late arrivals that closed the show more than bad business?
I think Johnny North got really ticked off with the show being late all the time. You didn't have Kinsella around to grease the wheels and make it move. Yeah. And you had 53 elephants, or all those punk elephants. And Johnny North just got tired of being late all the time. We were late all the time. And the other thing was, you didn't have men ushers to toss the Bibles. You had lady ushers doing that work, and it doesn't work that way. You got to be rugged like Ron Benner to toss Bibles.
What was the big, did the show do decent business that year?
Did the show do decent business
We
even
did
under
good business. Yes, we were doing business. Circuses are still doing business. Aren't they?
Talk a little bit about, and I'll ask you a couple questions here. These are kind of esoteric maybe, but when you were on the show, they moved to doing this thing with turnstiles. what did that do to getting people into the circus? They were trying to count tickets a little closer.
It was dangerous, and I went to the wagon and told Michael Burke that we couldn't get the people out in case of a storm. You had to get rid of the goddamn turntables. And we did.
The idea was that they wanted to keep track of the tickets a little bit closer. So how would you? So you're working inside, and people have bought their tickets, and now they're going to upgrade to a reserved seat. Tell me a little bit about that process and how you could make that work for you.
Well, I was working on the front door. And Lawson came to me one day and said, "Bill, we're going to put you in the ticket booth in the menagerie." So I went in and sold tickets in the menagerie ticket booth. And that night, after I sold the tickets at regular price, and that night, a ticket seller named Tommy Reel came to me. He said, "Bill, you're causing heat." I said, "What's the matter?" He said, "You've got to hike the price of those tickets because you got to give your boss Bill McGaw a pay at the end of the night." Oh, I said, "Okay." So I had to hike the price of tickets. That's all.
All right. So a ticket which would sell for $1, you're selling it now for $1.50.
Yeah.
But wasn't there a sign there that said $1?
That doesn't matter. They can't read. I was selling tickets one night, and I looked over, and there's Henry North standing right beside me. Everything I said, he was listening to. He didn't care. What the hell was going on? He was a good guy, Henry North.
So let's talk a little. Was he on the show a lot when you were on?
He was on the show. He was very well liked, and he was with the show.
You never came back to the G-Top.
No, he didn't go to the G-Top. He knew better than that.
So your first season was Kinsella's last. Do you
Yeah.
have any? You probably didn't have that much dealings with him, but did he run the show? I mean, he run the show.
He ran the show. You had to be a Kinsella person to be on that show at that time. One of them was Ted Copeland, who was the president of this club. They were Kinsella people. They knew how to run a show. They knew how to make money. And they know you got to grease the wheel to make the show move. No one wants to trust Bibles at night and everything else without making extra money. The ushers were hardworking guys.
Yeah, and you did work as an usher for a while too, right?
No, I worked at the front door, but I had to toss Bibles at night and tear down.
Did you get extra for that?
No, I had to do it. I sold canvas, unlaced canvas, did all that hard work. Put up the side poles in the morning. Yeah, it worked.
So when you look back on those years with the Ringling show under canvas, there were a lot of characters on that show that you worked with. I'm going to throw out some names, and you tell me your first opinion when I throw out the name. Okay, George Warner.
Hell of a Ted man, great guy, rugged guy, and strict. He kept those people under control.
So he was the boss canvas man at that time. How about Archie Scott?
Archie Scott was the elephant man, and the first year I was there, he rolled the horse Harold. He was a very good elephant man and menagerie man.
How about you talked about Noyles Burkhardt a little bit? He was an old time circus guy.
Right. Yeah. He told me not to join the circus. He always was trying to get me off the circuit. But he was a good friend and a good pal, and he knew the circus business. Johnny North wanted to hire him to manage the circus, and Burkhardt said, "No, it's got to be 40 cars." Well, Johnny North didn't want 40 cars. He wanted 60 cars. He wanted 55 elephants. He always wanted things bigger and bigger, but he didn't want to hear about the headaches.
Earl Evans.
Great man. He knew the circus business, and so did his wife, Nina. She was the secretary of the Red Wagon, and she could step out of that wagon and lay out a working man in words they never would understand. She was a real show. She's an old showgirl, I think, off the Cold Show. And wonderful lady.
So, you think about people who made a lot of money on the show. The Miller brothers had the concessions for many, many years. Did you know those guys?
Yes, very well. Frank and Paul and another guy. And the Miller brothers sometimes put up the money to get the show from Sarasota to New York. And so did Merle Evans when it was needed.
Now, that's a story that a lot of us have heard before, was that they needed the money sometimes to get from Sarasota to Madison Square Garden, and John North would go to those guys who he knew had money to at least help front the show.
He didn't want to use his own money. Johnny North never used his own money.
Do Did you see him around the show much?
Not very much. He stayed at the Waldorf Towers. He called the show late at night at the office and asked what the box office receipts were. And sometimes Nina Evans would send me over to the Waldorf with messages for him. That's all. You never saw him.
Benito Del Oro.
What?
Benito Del Oro.
A lovely lady and a great trapeze artist. Just a wonderful Spanish lady.
How about, you take a look at some of the flyers, like Faye Alexander. He was on the show with you, right?
Right. And so was the Palacios. Lalo Palacio was a great flyer. Handsome guy and a beautiful flyer.
Well, this has been a wonderful trip down memory lane for you, I know, and for us, it's been a real privilege to have the opportunity to hear it straight from your mouth to ours. So thanks again, Bill. And we have a question here in the back.
Right here, right over here.
Okay.
Over here.
Okay, so the question from Kathy was, Bibles, some people don't understand how the seats were constructed. Can you explain what the Bibles were?
Yeah. Well, the seat wagons, there were 20 some of them on the show, somebody on each side, and they fold the fronts folded down, and stringers went out, and you had inside the wagon there were these pieces like a flat table with chairs on them. Those were the Bibles, and you had
They folded like the Bible.
yeah, and you had to lay them on the stringers to make the seats for the. They lift them up and they have the seats.
Any other questions, folks? This is your chance to ask. This man was there. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us tonight. We look forward to seeing you at the convention tomorrow morning. We're going to get started with breakfast, I think, around 8
I
o'clock.
want to tell you one other thing. 3 men on the show to remember. Chicken Charlie, Grease, and there's one other. Chicken Charlie, Grease, and Meeks. Chicken Charlie, Greeks, and Meeks. They were black men, but they were in. Henry North wrote about them in the route book. They were good guys and hell of a workers. And we had another one, Cookhouse Frey, a drag queen.
Hey, you had a drag queen on the Ringling train? How'd you do that?
He worked in the cookhouse. He washed dishes. And when we had our 4th of July parties, he'd get the drag and then would take the axe.
Okay, great. I gotta sit down.
Oh, you're going to buy me a beer?
Yeah, we'll buy it. Thanks again, folks.
So, folks, that's our friend Bill Taggart, and I got to tell you, what a privilege to know Bill. I know a lot of people on this call. I know him also. I want to specifically thank Lisa Sterling and Wes Fields. Lisa and Wes were very close friends of Bill's, going back to their days in the 1970s when Bill worked at Lyndhurst, which is one of the estates up in upstate New York. As I mentioned earlier, we do have a lot of, I've talked to Bill for hours and hours. I have lots of tapes of Bill that I look forward to sharing with you in Bandwagon. Circus Historical Society does this Circus History Live every month. It's an opportunity for us to really talk about circus history of today and yesterday. And I know Bruce, we really had a great one tonight in the case of our friend Bill Taggart.
We sure did. And thank you, Chris, for sharing that interview of Bill. As I mentioned at the beginning, Circus History Live is produced by the Circus Historical Society. I'd like to thank Chris for hosting the program tonight and sharing that video with us. And also behind the scenes, Anya Norris, who does our YouTube channel and social media. The recording of this program will be available tomorrow on the YouTube channel, Circus Historical Society YouTube channel. I'd also like to thank you for attending the program tonight. The CHS is a nonprofit organization. We've got about 675 members from 12 countries. If you're not already a member, we'd love to have you join us. As a part of being a membership, you'll receive our beautiful journal, The Bandwagon, which comes out quarterly. It's about 100 pages each issue, 75 to 100 pages of great history, beautiful articles, written by many of our folks, including Chris and other historians. It's terrific. And we also do some other programs as well at the convention, of course, which is a gathering of all of our folks, from many of our folks, I should say, around the country. So again, thank you for coming tonight. And if you're not already a member, please go to circushistory.org and join us. Any final thoughts, Chris?
No, again, there's a kind of a proverb that I oftentimes quote at times like this. When an old man dies, a library burns to the ground. And it's unfortunate, but actually through the miracle of the internet, we've been able to share some of that library with you here tonight. I hope you join us again. And Bill Taggart, we will definitely see you down the road.